We live in a world now where you have to be a real, I want to use the correct language here. You have to be an animal as a man. And I mean, you have to be like a real top shelf, top tier man to make sure that you can get through life in the Western world without either being embarrassed by a female, cheated on by a female, to still enjoy the company of females, to not have anyone try and take you to court or destroy you. Like if you're the top 1%, like I've done fine, then you can do it, right? But for the average man in the West, outside of the idea of an Islamic marriage, for example, there's basically no hope. There's no hope. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to pull off? It's incredible. And I know a bunch of guys who are Christian and they go to the church and their Christian wives cheat on them. Like, the church ain't going to save you. This is what I mean. Like, wow. There's no faith. There's nothing there. It's basically because I think both genders, especially in the West, have forgotten their roles as a whole. Like, I understand why most men are not waking up thinking, you know what, I want to have a bunch of kids with a woman. The legal system's out to destroy you. Most of the women aren't going to behave themselves or comply in any kind of manner. Like, I had many Muslim friends. I grew up in Luton in England, which is predominantly Muslim. And in England as a whole, London has a lot of Muslims as well. Yeah. My Muslim friends used to say to me all the time, we'd be out and we'd be walking around and they'd see some girl in a short skirt or whatever. And they'd say, this is why I need an Islamic wife. Is she a wife? She's naked and drunk at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like did
you mean 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. actually?
p.m. Sorry,
2 p.m. 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Wow.
Just drunk and just, you know, run around acting crazy and there's a degree of, I mean, hey, I think if you were to ask any man if he'd want an Islamic wife, a wife who complies, who's not going to cheat, who behaves herself, who dresses modestly, maybe not even completely, you know, full burqa, but dresses modestly, behaves appropriately, shows respect. That whole podcast was about how to try and make females basically act the way they've acted for the longest period of human history up until modern times where they've completely forgotten. And I said, well, Islam fixes it because they don't have any of these problems, right? We now live in a world in the West where we've thrown religion away and we've thrown cultural norms away. We've thrown so many things away, and there's a degree of confusion amongst people. People are lost. They really are, men and women. I think a lot of the Western women act so degenerate, and they don't do it because they're evil. They're doing it because they're trying to find happiness, and they can't find it, right? And they think, oh, maybe a new man's happiness, maybe drinking alcohol's happiness, maybe taking drugs is happiness. And if you don't ever find a higher purpose, you're just going to degenerate in a spiral downwards, and that's kind of what's happened. And now we're in a situation where, in the West, a man can't find a wife worth having. And people keep saying, oh, men don't want to be men anymore. Men don't want to get married. Would you marry some chick you meet in the club in Miami? like you'd be a fool. Like, I won't, you know?
You said if we remove all the garbage in the fairy tales, if men are true to their biology, no man is a one-woman man.
I truly actually believe that. I believe I think that, obviously, okay, we're humans, right? We exist as biological animals, and then we exist with the degree of societal programming. And I think the femme-centric societies of the West have convinced men that we should have one woman and one woman only. And I can get conspiracy theorists on why that is, but I think a lot of it is down to the fact that they are trying very hard in the Western world to suppress the will of man. They want the Western male to a degree to be suppressed, and not suppressed in a way which empowers him. Because I think there's different degrees of suppression, right? You can be suppressed in a way which will empower you, but you can also be suppressed in a way which will just destroy your will to fight. And I think a lot of that is down to, not down to this, but every single thing they do, every single thing society purports to a degree, is not to empower men. And you're more likely to feel powerful as a man if you have 3 wives, or if you have a lot of female who adore you, right? But if you have one chick who doesn't obey you, who you can't divorce without losing the house, who won't even have sex with you, doesn't want to have your kids, and you're stuck with her, it's pretty hard to find warrior spirit. It's hard to act like a king if you don't feel like a king in your own household. And I think that if you were to go to any man in the world and be honest with him and say, look, it's perfectly acceptable for you to have this woman. She's going to be loyal to you. She's going to love you. She's going to stay with you. She's your wife. And you can also have this one, and she's going to be your wife. Same deal. I do not think there's a man alive who would say no to that. I really don't. Why would he? Why would he, right? I think society tells us we're supposed to only have one. But I understand in Islam you can have 4, I think. But I'm not an expert. You are. But I just think it's natural human nature to enjoy the company of more than one female. Or I think if you're a man of means, you could easily have more than one wife. I think that's perfectly normal, and I think that's been beaten out of the Western male as a suppression mechanism.